And the Anything Podcast. I'm Aaron.
I'm Chris. So, we were speaking about movies beforehand.
And here we go.
Yeah. And we were talking about movies before we got going. But to answer, John Wick 4 and The Matrix 4 are slated to come out on the exact same day. So Keanu Reeves will be in two places at once.
I wonder if they're going to do a double feature like.
I don't know. That'd be awesome. You know, it would be really cool because it's May, so all of the drive-ins will be open at that point, or should be. They should do a Matrix 4, John Wick 4 opening at the same time, which would like double feature, which would be amazing. But yeah, it's scheduled for May 21st, 2021. So that's going to be a very interesting day because I'm going to have to choose which movie I'm going to see. And I already know I'm going to go see Matrix 4.
Oh, for sure. I've only seen the first John Wick.
Okay. I actually haven't seen them yet.
Okay.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Because I don't spend money on going to the theater unless it's for like certain movies. Like,
Right,
I'll go
course.
see The Matrix because that's just an amazing movie. I'll go see the Fast and the Furious franchise films, and except for Shaw and Hobbs, I didn't see that. I'll wait for it to come out on like free TV.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the other one is the MCU movies. So it sucks because there's such a gap between Spider-Man, Far From Home, and Black Widow that we have to live through right now. Like, I have to go all the way to May 1st, like 5 months from now,
That's a long time.
to come out with the next MCU, and it's
Yeah.
like, you're killing me.
Yeah.
Just please. And they're giving like all these details of like, and I don't want to see it. Like, they're like, I watch Screen Rant or Rockstar or some, I forget what the YouTube channels are, but they'll go through things and it's like, oh, they gave her these details out. They give these details. And I'm like, I don't want to know those details. I just want to watch the goddamn shit.
Well, I wanted to have my own show where we just watched trailers of the movies and we critique the trailers.
They do that.
Yeah. It's going to be called Trailer Trash. And it was a really good idea.
Well,
10 years ago.
they New Rockstars.
Okay.
That's the channel, and they do that. I mean, they break down trailers like that.
Yeah.
You could do that.
Yeah.
You
So have
just
some
have to-
popcorn, just trash them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't have to try. I mean,
Yeah.
you could break down a trailer and be like, well, there's this and this, and then you could break down and be like, well, this means this, or like in the last Harry Potter movie, the Deadly Hallows 2, I think whatever it is, they showed one of the Weasley brothers dead. And I mean, if you didn't read the books, then you would be like, oh my God, such a big spoiler. But because the books have been out for a little bit, you'd know. So it's like you could break down that and you could be like, oh, there's this that they show, and this is like kind of like a little spoiler or something. So I mean, you could still do that. There's no reason why you couldn't. I mean, there's people break down trailers a lot. It's just a matter of if you want to do that or not. So, I mean, you always talk about you wanting to do certain forms of entertainment.
Yes,
I just don't
I
know why
do.
you haven't like gone to that yet.
I'm going to. As soon as this other things settle down, that's what my focus is going to be. It's going to be super exciting. Now, are you familiar with a gentleman named Ron Jeremy?
Yes.
Did you know that he's in Ghostbusters?
No. I did not.
Yeah, he's in Ghostbusters. He came up at work the other day. So appropriate at work. And I was like, yeah, the guy in Ghostbusters, right?
You should talk to HR and be like, they made me feel uncomfortable.
Yes, for sure.
And that's sexual harassment
Yeah.
because Ron Jeremy is a porn star.
Yeah.
And that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I want to report these people
Yeah.
for talking about Ron Jeremy
Yeah.
at the workplace.
For sure.
In our sensitive culture.
I'm sure somebody is probably at HR right now on the weekend.
You want to hear something funny? And
Always.
this is on the Joe Rogan podcast hold on, I will tell you exactly what it is. So if you want to listen to it, because I'm getting it right from there. It's 1404 with Brian Callen. And I don't know the timestamp, but Joe was talking about how Whitney Cummings, who's also a comedian, really funny, good looking, something with her feet. I don't know what's the big deal with her feet, but something about that. But she said Merry Christmas to people like apparently leaving, and an intern reported her saying Merry Christmas to HR. She's like,
Yeah.
go fuck yourself.
Like months later too.
I mean, well, no, it's like happening like right now because
Yeah, well,
it's Christmas in like
They reported
days.
her for saying Merry Christmas last year in like June.
Oh, that's when it was.
like,
I didn't really pay attention to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Well, there's crazy lawsuits out there now. It's insane. Eliza Schlesinger, who is also another hilarious comedian, attractive, she is being sued because she had a woman's only
Oh yeah.
comedy place where it was like, okay, this is a for women's only show, and there's a professional litigator, a professional sewer.
Yeah.
Let's call him a professional sewer because that's what you are. You're a sewer that's professional at being a sewer.
That's your job. Let's just call it that. You go around looking for
That's
little
what he
legal
does.
loopholes.
That's what he does.
So you can be like, oh, I'm going to sue you for that. And
Yeah. And of course, it's just because of the society that we live in, it's just a way to get money for not actually working to get the money. So people will try any kind of angle. Who wants to work? Nobody wants to work. People try all sorts of different angles not to work, you know?
Well, quick disclaimer. Let's just say this. Quick disclaimer. This is all public knowledge, so it's not going to have any issues for any parties.
Right.
But yeah, I just want to say that
Yeah.
because you can go look it up.
Yeah.
So
She came out with it.
But yeah, when I heard that, I'm like, that's pathetic.
Yeah.
That is.
Well,
fucked
there's
up.
a lot of people who just go around trying to sue people for ridiculous litigation. And not only that, so I get with the word of the law. Like, you have to follow the word of the law. If the word of the law says this, you have to follow it.
Yeah, but there's things called civil disobedience.
Well,
and certain things need to.
Well, my
really be-
issue is with punitive damages. Like, so another case that I won't mention the details of, someone got embarrassed on TV and they want $130 million.
What?
Yeah, for getting embarrassed, which isn't. There's actually two different ones. There's one's going on it's a sports stadium where there was a heckler heckling one of the sports guys that was coming off of the field.
Well, let's get into actual information because if you're keeping it so damn general, it doesn't make any sense.
I don't remember the details.
So you need to give me the details.
I'll have to look it up. But the basics are there was a sports player coming off of the field, and there was one of the people in the crowd that was heckling him and saying, you know, you're this and that, horrible things. And then the sports player made a comment back, right? Well, because the sports player made a comment back, the person is saying that he got publicly embarrassed on TV, and that's worth $130 million.
Oh, what a pussy.
Well, the whole thing is that, like, in punitive damages, they have insane amount of numbers, right? And it's like what the earnings potential could be for that person, like the most that any human being could ever earn, right?
Yeah.
Well, what about the least that they could earn? Like there has to be some
I'm
kind
sorry.
of
Your
balance.
your case is worth $1.40.
Like you make $9 an hour, like, you know what I mean? Like these people are not, you know, it doesn't make any sense.
Like I could just say, oh, well, my value is over the lifetime $3 billion.
Yes.
And that's because I'm setting myself up for the potential to actually hit that amount.
Right.
But because you embarrassed me on TV,
Yeah.
I can't do that anymore.
Right.
No, shut the fuck up.
Right now, I'm a pizza delivery driver, but my earning
Whoa,
potential is
hold on, time out,
$130 million.
I made a shit ton of money delivering pizzas.
Oh, not that
when I
there's
did it.
anything wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong.
But are you
can
set
make
up,
a shit ton of
yeah,
money.
Are you going to make $130 million in your lifetime?
If you deliver to some celebrities, you might.
Probably.
Especially if you create like a channel that says like celebrity delivery or something, and it's delivering to celebrities, and then you hang out with them and like talk with them for a little bit or something.
I just don't think that there's logic. Like somehow logic just flies out the window when it comes to these things. And I get it. It's a combination. It's all just greed. Right?
A lot of it's, well, first of all, it's common sense.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
common
there is
sense
no
isn't
common
common.
sense, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Common sense isn't common.
Right.
It's just a bunch of morons. And the problem is that there's all of these issues that come up in like all these stupid frivolous lawsuits that just tie up the court system. And it's like, go fuck a duck, you stupid people.
Yeah.
Like, just because you don't want to work. Whoop-de fucking, let's just admit you don't want to work.
Yeah.
You just want free money.
Well, who doesn't?
And you want it off somebody else's dime.
Well, that's the problem.
And it's like, no,
Yeah.
go fuck yourself.
Well, also they know the way that our system works. They know that they'll settle. So like, okay, well, we're going to ask for $130 million. They're probably going to settle it around 30, 40 million, maybe 10 million. Is 10 million good for you?
I don't even think they'll get that in a settlement.
Depends on who it is.
Here's what I would settle for. I'd be like, I'll give you $1.40 to get the fuck out of here right now. And if you say no,
Yeah.
I'll see you in court.
But they know that they're going to settle. I'm like, is $10 million okay for you? We're going to ask for $130 million, which is, we all know it's ridiculous. But it's the same thing with if they want to raise taxes, right? We go, we're going to raise taxes to 20. The target is to raise taxes by 5 or 10%. So when they say, well, we want to raise taxes, oh, no, we're not raising taxes. Well, okay, we want to raise taxes 25%. No way, that's great. All right, we'll only do 10%. And then everyone's like, oh, okay, we'll just raise it by 10%. When really, nobody wants. It's just.
That's where they wanted it all along. Yeah. So they're like, oh, okay, well, what can we reason? And then it'll sound like we gave them a deal.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing that with when Facebook pulled changes on the whole Facebook site itself. So like, if you remember when Facebook first started, it was like this collage of you. And you could have like all these different little apps. So it, like the timeline and all that wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like it was just like a collage. And then you could be like friends with people and see their collages. So it was like very similar to MySpace, just set up a little differently.
I only remember when I joined it because I was a MySpacer. When I joined it, it was just a post where it's like this person posted a picture and this person did this.
Yeah, that was when the timeline was introduced. Okay. But
that's
before that, it was like your page. And like you could put like these apps and games and shit on there, and like you could set it up differently. Whoa. So it was like your page.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden it went to like it changed to the timeline. But every time they made changes, they made a change. People bitched the shit out of it. So what they did was they breathed this little lie that says, oh, Facebook is going to start charging people. And if you don't want Facebook to start charging people and you use it for continue, post this and it'll, so then they'd be like, oh, no, or everybody would get crazy about that because they don't want to be charged a monthly fee.
Yeah.
So they forgot about the changes and they just kind of like whatevered it. And they went to this subscription thing, and it was this smoke screen thing. So it's like, here, what's this going on? Well, we're making the changes over here, and that's what everybody does. So it's like, if you want to see what happened to anything, like any crazy thing that happens in society, in the world, whatever, look at what was happening just before that. And that's probably the smoke screen where they're like, oh, look over here when we're really doing this over here. And that's like the real big conspiracy was the whole thing with like September 10th, where they said that they lost like trillions of dollars and can't account for trillions of dollars. I think it was like 2.3 trillion.
Yes.
Don't quote me, but it was somewhere like that ballpark
exactly
figure.
Yeah.
And like they were going to have a meeting and all this, and then September 11th happens in the same spot of where all the records were.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it just so happens that it's like that was like a main conspiracy of September 11th that like kind of got blown past it, and nobody really thought about that trillions of dollars. And then like they had the projected cost of the war effort would have been 2.4 trillion like within this certain time frame, and it was like, oh, that's a pretty hell of a coincidental number, even though it ended up costing a lot more. But still, it was like it's just this like crazy, like, I mean, yeah, you could connect anything really if you spend the time to like find that connection, but it's like certain things just coincidentally just line up just perfectly, and it's like, all right, what really happens there? For sure. And that's the thing, like if you ever see anything that happens that's like this big shock to the system, look at what's happening just before that and see, or even just after that, and see what they're trying to impose or what they're trying to do, because that's where you're going to get the real data of what's going on. And it's like, oh, if you ever hear the words public safety in a sentence, and it's giving up your rights. It's essentially taking your rights and squishing them a little bit. So if you say, oh, public safety and Second Amendment, that's because they want to get rid of the Second Amendment in public safety, even though technically the Second Amendment is actually better public safety. Same thing with freedom of speech. So First Amendment, when they're talking about freedom of speech, and they say, public safety or feelings getting hurt or something, it's limiting your rights as an individual.
You know, that was always an interesting one to me, is that it's always been decided that it doesn't matter if somebody saying something hurts your feelings. Where that speech is protected by freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Now, what's not protected, and I completely understand, is speech that would cause harm to someone else, where like you're forcing someone to do violence.
Oh, I 100% agree with you.
It's a fine line, because really you have to have, I could never understand the control that I understand how words can cause someone to go do violence to someone. I get it. But, you know, it's like an individual choice too. But somebody saying something that you may not agree with is hurting your feelings. That has always been protected, but nowadays, even that kind of speech is not protected. Now we live in an environment where you can't say something.
It's still
that might hurt
protected.
someone else.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's still protected under under government, under like public,
no one's gonna put you in
literal
jail.
Public squares. Like they're not going to put you to jail or anything.
But you're going to get canceled.
But like, yeah, that's what it is. Like media, social media, like Facebook, they'll put you in Facebook jail. Yeah. Like, really, I don't care.
Yeah.
Fuck Facebook.
Yeah.
For all I care. Like, I don't. I go on Facebook only to promote business and to promote my YouTube channel, to promote this. And then, yeah, it's a nice place to put pictures and like funny memes and shit. Other than that, fuck Facebook. I don't really care. Like, I've eliminated Instagram. I don't use it at all. I could care less about it. Like the last post probably was like a year and a half ago. I don't care. Fuck it. Facebook, same thing. Like, fuck Facebook. And then, you know, I love YouTube. I like the content on there is great because there's so much shit. But even there, you know, they're censoring people and saying, oh, this isn't advertiser friendly. And it's like squeezing the hand of the content creator that can by the person that feeds you, essentially.
Right, for sure.
And it's saying, oh, well, we can't have that.
Yeah.
But yet I watch it on Fox or CNN or somewhere, and there's ads playing on it perfectly fine. So it's advertiser friendly. It's just because it doesn't look good for you.
Right.
That's where the problem lies.
Right.
And it's
I totally
like,
get it.
oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, even in just the court of popular opinion, people are, you're canceled because you said something that, you know, it was off color and out of context.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous.
And then the crazy thing is, like, people like, oh, I'm sorry, I have a plastic water bottle. Well, I'm going to drink out of this plastic water bottle because the tap water I don't like.
Sure.
There's things in tap water that I don't like.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get plastic water bottles because guess what? This plastic water bottle is not the problem. Mm-hmm. Because I go and I take this water bottle back to get recycled and to get my deposit back.
For sure.
Because I have to pay 5 cents. So, you know, you add that up, you get quite a bit of money back. But this plastic water bottle is not the problem. Plastic can be recycled into many different things.
Some plastic. I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because what I was trying to do.
Hold on. Yeah, but we're don't get off that point. Think that later. But Chris Pratt was carrying a water bottle and drinking out of it, and Jason Momoa or whatever called him out on it, saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be drinking out of a plastic water bottle because that's going to harm the environment." Well, hey, guess what, Jason Momoa? You're Aquaman. He's fucking Peter Quill. He's Star-Lord. I'm sorry, you're stuck in an ocean. He's Guardian of the Galaxy, bitch. And so if he wants to drink out of a plastic water bottle, let him. But here's the thing. Chris Pratt apologizes oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be drinking out of a plastic water bottle. That makes as much sense as banning plastic straws. Seriously?
Well,
it
so-
ain't gonna do shit.
No, it does. It does a very minuscule amount. I get that's a fair point. I was thinking about it though. So how do you get away from plastic, right? Okay, water bottles, you're right. It's going to make a very small impact. Getting rid of plastic bags, small impact. Getting rid of straws, small impact. Toothbrushes, small impact, right? But in the amount of plastic that's produced, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to start being more environmentally conscious. I'll get a biodegradable toothbrush. Well, then the toothpaste. I'm going to get toothpaste that doesn't have fluoride in it because we get enough fluoride in the water. I don't need, or there's other sources for fluoride, or maybe I just I want a healthier toothpaste. Well, then that toothpaste comes in plastic. Well, my concern with the plastic is the disruptors. So if you get a plastic bowl, I don't want to heat that bowl up in soup in the microwave because maybe that chemicals from the plastic are leaching into the soup and disrupting my endocrine system, right?
Well, but that's the whole thing. Every single thing is plastic.
Yeah, there's plastic everywhere.
Everything.
That's the whole thing.
And here's the thing. Like, we can pretty much transition to hemp plastic, which it will be biodegradable. So, 60, 80 days or something, this bottle would break down into nothing because it's hemp plastic.
Right.
So let's stop the ban on fucking hemp and let's start producing it because guess what? We can make ethanol out of it. We can make plastic out of it. We can make clothing out of it. I mean, there's so many different things that we can use with it. And we would take our reliance off oil a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, all we'd have, most of our fields would become hemp. And then the question is, how would that interact with the soil? Like, is that going to be good for the soil, or is it going to be like corn where it just leaches the shit out of it and we don't do proper crop rotations? So we got to figure that stuff out. But that's the whole thing. Like, we should be thinking long-term fixes
right,
and how we can do it ecologically and environmentally friendly. So, yeah, okay, hemp. Hemp is a great answer for a lot of things, yet, oh my God, it can get you high. Don't do hemp. It's bad for you.
I thought hemp can't get you high.
Well, it's all out of the same.
Is it cannabis? I don't know enough about it.
Well, it's all out of the same type of.
So hemp doesn't get you high. In fact, I think
No, hemp is the plant itself, and the buds of cannabis is what can get you high. But there's a lot of factors in it. But you can do a lot of things with the plant itself. So you could do so many different things. Like I said, the plastic, textile. I mean, there's industries that you could just produce this from. And the question is, how do you produce it in such a way where it would be economically friendly, it would be environmentally friendly, and it would change the industries. So instead of producing certain plastics where, yeah, this I'm okay with it being biodegradable. This, I kind of want to keep around for a little while. So we're going to need it a little bit differently. So how do we make it so it's going to be correct? How is it going to be good for the environment, that it's going to stick around for a while? And then we have the ability down the road to take this plastic and turn it into something else after its useful life of pop filter, of being a microphone, and all that good jazz.
Well, how much this microphone cost, would you spend twice as much for that microphone if it was made out of the ceramic and glass that are sustainable?
But is it
that's what the issue is.
That's the thing. Is it sustainable? Because, again, you have finite resources that you have to work with.
Yeah.
We're pumping oil out like bleeding the earth dry. So we're creating plastic, we're creating fuel, and we're expending those resources.
Yeah.
So we need to come up with ideas that can take what we already have, convert it into something else, which can be done on most plastics and most things. And the things that they say cannot have a life after whatever it is currently, I think it's just bullshit because we can find ways to create that plastic into something else via certain means. So all it is just recycling and reusing what we have and creating it in a way. I mean, I can understand if you store certain chemicals in it, you got to wash the shit out of it. You got to, like if I put muriatic acid in it, I got to put something that's equivalent on a base side to neutralize everything. But then I can take that plastic and put it into something else.
Right.
So it's all we need to use is technology and ingenuity to create certain plastics, or I mean, to reuse and recycle certain plastics that they deem unrecyclable.
For sure. Well, upcycling stuff is one solution, but the problem with just like eliminating plastic, which would be the ultimate solution, is that it's the cost.
Is it though?
Yeah, people don't want to put the cost into, like, they don't want to pay twice as much for something when they could get the same thing in a cheaper plastic. In the long term, it's going to cost more. In the long term, because we're destroying the planet. But in the short term, if it's cheaper in the short term, then
that's where it gets tricky, though. That's the tricky thing, though, because this plastic bottle will always be cheaper until oil starts running dry, and you hit that time frame where you're not finding as much oil as you're pumping out, and so you're starting to get closer to that end all be all, and then it's like, all right, well, what do we do from that point forward? So it's a matter of just using ingenuity and using what we're doing. So like landfills are horrible polluters, first of all, because there's methane gas that's coming out of them. That's a horrible greenhouse gas. Like I don't know how many times worse it is than carbon dioxide emissions. But that's the other thing too. It's like carbon dioxide emissions, are they really the problem that we should be focusing on? Because what uses carbon dioxide and produces oxygen? Plants. I mean, they suck it out. The oceans use it. Now, I understand that the oceans only can hold so much carbon dioxide. So, yeah, you know how they have these carbon carbon air filters, essentially, where they're just like this massive building with fans, and they can literally suck out carbon dioxide.
They have those?
They do.
Oh, I didn't know.
Why don't we put them in the ocean, or design something where the ocean, something can suck out carbon dioxide in the oceans, because those are the places that suck in more carbon dioxide than anything. But there's plants that use it. It's photosynthesis. So that, to me, isn't as big of a deal as something like methane gas, where methane gas has a higher greenhouse effect, and there's many more issues, and our landfills are horrible emitters of methane. So it's like, well, why don't we dig all this up, get rid, or like go through all of our garbage and say, all right, well, all of the organics can be composted, put into soil, made into soil. We put it together, this giant composting area, and then that way we can take that compost and spread our fields with it. So we put nutrients back into the soil. So we start extending our expected 60 what is it? 60 yield crop is what they expect left, or 60 crop, or I don't know what the exact terms are, but they expect to get 60 more crops out of the soil until the soil's depleted. So why don't we start doing that? Because there's so much garbage that we produce daily that is organic. So start putting it towards that. Then let's look, glass. We break down the glass, we reuse it. Same thing with plastic. Okay, let's take our plastic, let's break it down. And then that way we start reusing and recycling everything that we have and make it a continual thing. So instead of just leaving it in the ground, letting it leach, letting it burst out methane, letting it do all of these things, we're actually reusing our trash, and we're actually making, strides at it better. why can't we do stuff like that instead of just, oh yeah, let's just throw it in a fucking landfill?
So when I was a kid and my brain worked, when our friend's kid came in the other day to interject when we were in our heated conversation.
Yeah, we're not getting into that. Moving on.
Anyway, what I'm saying is when our friend's kid came in and he made a great argument where he's saying this and this and this, his points were very lucid. They were logical. And it reminded me of when I was that age, when my brain was like a computer and everything is logical and well thought out. So,
well, to a point.
Well, it's because you don't have the life experience, but the ideology of what he said was spot on, and he was right. He was 100% right. So back when I was a kid, I always thought, why don't we have gigantic filters in the oceans that are filtering everything? And why is the ocean polluted? And like you think of like a fish tank as a filter. Why don't we have these giant fish tank filters in the ocean? Why isn't there giant filters for the air on your car? Why don't, at the end of your car, at the tailpipe, why don't they have a little cartridge that takes all of the bad stuff?
Already. It's called a catalytic converter.
Right, but it's not, it doesn't, there's still pollutants coming out, right? I'm like, why isn't it a closed loop, right? Where you just, it can grab everything and then maybe you'd have to like go take it to the gas station and get a new one or something, right? Like where it's a closed loop. There's no pollutants coming out, right? Now, these things can be done. It's not that they're out of the realm of possibility. I'm a huge advocate of science and technology that can solve all of our problems. The problem is nobody wants to put in the money or the time or the effort, and that's what it is.
Well, yeah. And
who's going to pay for it?
And that's where again you're correct on that. But the problem is, it's like we need to do something, and
for sure.
That's the whole thing. Like the people think. Or I should say corporations and companies think of the here and the now because they're looking at profit. They're looking at paying shareholders. They're looking at that. Instead, they should be looking long term because the first company that looks long term and puts in these practices, they're not going to be bound by what other companies will be in terms of putting a limit on themselves, because they'll be able to outlast these other companies that don't make the change.
Right. Yep.
So whoever makes the change first is probably going to set themselves up for a very lucrative, long-term financial strategy, gain, investment. All of that stuff is going to be better for those companies that do make the changes now or try to implement that. And that's one of the things.
And the other thing that's crazy about it, in an ideal world, our monetary system does not work this way, but in an ideal world, those people who are doing that work, that are making the filters for the ocean, that are making the filters, that are cleaning all the stuff, that are doing the research, they would get money for doing their work. And then they'd have money to buy things, right? So like more work is good for human beings, I think, but our system doesn't work that way, and it really should. I always wondered, like, why don't we have, all this? And there's a lot of people doing great research. So the problem with a lot of different plastics is some of them are not recyclable. Some of them are. You can upcycle them and use them for other things, which we need to do. But I read an article where now they're coming, scientists hopefully have worked a way so that you can completely recycle plastic, where you can break it down with a minimal amount of heat. See, that's the other problem, is energy. So you have to expend a certain amount of energy to produce that bottle, right? That does take either fossil fuel or some kind of renewable resource. And to do it again over and over again, it's expending energy, and people don't want to put the effort into expending that energy so that it's a loop. But I think the same thing. Would you spend for that bottle, would you spend $4 instead of $1 for a recyclable bottle that's actually biodegradable? People don't want to spend the extra time to save our planet.
It's going to be that much, though.
Well, it's not that much, but it's just some of the things are, right? It depends. I mean, but that's always the argument of why people don't have the 100% recyclable things, because you could produce, thousands of those bottles per penny, and it might cost 4, 5, 10 times as much to produce something that's recyclable. However, the long-term damage is something that is going to cause pollution in the ocean, which is going to give us less fish and less food. If it's put into a landfill, there might be chemicals that leach into the ground. That's the other problem with landfills, is that they do leak a lot of methane, but they're also leaking chemicals into the ground. You think of, if you don't properly dispose of your electronic waste, that goes into a landfill. That's leaching into the ground. If it's near a watershed, near a water table, you're poisoning your water source. So in the long run, it's better for all humans to just spend the little effort now and then having the planet damaged later. But we're in this cycle of, convenience, where it's cheaper and convenient, and we'll worry about it later. Well, sooner or later, we're not going to have time to worry about it later. And I think that's coming now. So for myself, I have been trying to be more conscious of, maybe I'm going to get a glass water bottle and a water filter, so I can try to eliminate using plastic. Now, one thing that's interesting that I'd like to know is those at the store where you're supposed to, they have those recycled bags that you can buy instead of, like, they're like $1 or $2 to get the plastic bag. I think that somebody was reading an article about how those aren't good either. So should you get a recycled bag? I don't know. Who knows? What's the solution?
I don't know. I'm going to continue getting my bag, and then I'm going to actually reuse my bags as I always do. I'm Italian. I have a shit ton of my plastic bags that are still there.
Do all households have those?
I don't know.
If I go,
I think it's more of an Italian thing.
Maybe.
But
I have.
So I got a question. I'm tired of the eco talk. It bored me. Sorry. It does. I mean, we need to make changes, obviously, but I want to get into some real talk.
All right.
Let's get into some real talk. Let's get into some fun shit. So right now it's December 22nd when this is being recorded. So we got a couple days till Christmas. We had a very short Christmas season, you could say, because November 28th was Thanksgiving. So on the grand scheme of things, it was like less time between that and now. Mm-hmm. So it seems like the season went very quick. Are you sick of Christmas songs yet, or what?
I haven't heard any because I haven't been listening to the radio.
Nice.
Yep.
Same here.
Yep. Been completely out of it. Yep. Completely out of it. I don't like when they start playing them in November at stores and stuff.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. They're playing it earlier than that
crazy.
Now. Yeah. They were playing Christmas music before Halloween.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, what the fuck do you need to do it that early for?
Yeah. You know what I was thinking about?
I don't know what you're thinking about. Why don't you tell me?
Because it's Christmas time, and what are some things that people believe that are like crazy beliefs? That's what I was thinking about. Maybe we'll talk about it next time.
People believe that the earth is flat.
Yep.
People believe that September 11th was an inside job. People believe that we are walking among aliens. People believe that pretty much everything. Oh, people believe that there's more than one or more than two genders. Sorry, I had to throw that one in there.
Well, first of all, Chris, the lizard people are real, and they're among us. Everyone knows that.
Well, what about the grays and the what are they? The grays, the whites,
yeah,
the lizard people,
yeah.
And what's the other one?
I think those people just wake up like groggy, and they're looking at their cat.
I don't know.
They're half asleep, and
you
it's
ever
the
look
cat.
You ever look at your cat and like a cat, and dude, they look like fucking aliens. Especially if you like pull their like when they like rub themselves, and they're like pushing themselves through. So like if you put your hand around them and they push through, and their fucking shit goes back, they look like fucking aliens, man. They do.
Yeah, those people who are like, oh, I saw an alien. They're asleep in their bed. They kind of half wake up. They look around and their cat's like perched over there half in the dark in the moonlight. And they're like, oh my God, an alien.
All right, so I gotta ask you this question because we've had quite a few conversations on other life and alien life and that out there. And then I know you've listened to a lot of different things recently. Has that changed your viewpoint? Do you think that there's aliens out there? Yes.
I don't.
Do you think there's life form out
No,
there besides this Earth?
Well,
on this tiny little dot in this vast universe
Yeah.
that we don't even know how big it really is
Yeah,
because
for sure.
we just can't comprehend it, nor do we have the sophisticated equipment to really be able to.
Right. I stick to my earlier sentiment that I think life may be rare, and if there is life out there, they're not more advanced than us, and I think that maybe we'll find like amoebas on another planet or something, or some kind of maybe a life form that's not even carbon based. That'd be crazy, but I don't think that there is.
Didn't they find life on Earth that's not carbon based?
It was.
It's like in the fucking rocks and shit, or it was like
I think
by the vents in oceanic.
Maybe
vents.
the one that I remember, I think, was in the Salton Sea. I'm probably getting it totally wrong, but I think that one was. Oh God, I want to say arsenic based, but I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, arsenic. No, it's arsenic based or
Something
and
like that.
And like
it's
they
been
could
15 years.
well that, and they could live off sulfur.
Yeah,
and it was like absolutely poisonous. And they're like, we don't know how this life is actually formed and like living. And it's like, oh well, we just discovered a new life form. So I mean, yeah, like I said, I mean. There's so vast of space. I mean, there could be any type of life form out there. And, you know, there could be spots in the universe where life is teeming in multiple planets that could be interplanetary. But if we can't necessarily see certain signals, or we don't have the ability or technology, we may not be able to interact with other life forms just because of the vastness of space that there is out there. So it'll be interesting, you know, over the next few decades that we're alive to see if there's anything that is improved upon or whatnot.
Researchers have discovered the first known microorganism on Earth to be able to thrive and reproduce using the toxic chemical arsenic. The microorganism, which lives in California's Mono Lake, substitutes arsenic for phosphorus in the backbone of its DNA and other cellular components. But
is it still carbon-based,
I
though?
think that's what it's. I think it just uses a different form of energy. But it's been a long time since I've really delved into biology and chemistry in that way. Mm-hmm. This was right up my alley about 10 years ago. That's why I remember it, because I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I remember seeing that too.
But it's very interesting. What was interesting to me is I remember reading something about Chernobyl. The elephant's foot. So when Chernobyl, for people who don't know, who've lived under a Chernobyl rock, Chernobyl was a nuclear reactor that blew up in
the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Horrible thing.
Yeah, was it 1986, 84, 86? Something like that.
Yeah, it was right around there.
So it's the worst nuclear accident in the world that we know of. But what's interesting to me is
close to Fukushima.
That's
close.
See, what's interesting about Fukushima is that it uses a different type of nuclear fuel. So even though it's a horrible, horrible radioactive disaster, I think Chernobyl was worse just because of the nuclear fuel that it used. I'd have to look into it further.
It's non-inhabitable for like
it's so
30,000
bad. They're still
years.
so bad, yeah. So it's like, and it's spread, yeah, Fukushima's right up there, right? So when Chernobyl melted down, the fuel melted through the floor, went through concrete, and went into the basement, right? And there's pictures of the radioactive molten core that people allegedly took with using a mirror from around the corners. You couldn't get in front of this thing. And it's the creepiest thing.
It's like looking into Medusa's eyes.
You
really can't
is.
do it because you will die.
That's exactly it. So I was reading up on it, and it's crazy because barrels that are of nuclear waste, they found bacteria that eat the nuclear waste, right? That use the radiation.
Well, you know what we need to do? We need to get that bacteria and put it in Love Canal.
Everywhere. We need it.
Well, wherever there's
Yeah.
nuclear waste, that's where we need to do it.
Yep.
Why don't we just take our nuclear waste, ship it to the moon, let the bacteria go hog
Yeah.
wild, and call it a day?
Or just shoot it into the sun so it all comes back right at us.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just going to get transformed.
Again, cost. Who's going to pay for it? That's
True.
the whole reason why everything doesn't get done, because nobody wants
Dude,
to.
did you hear about that satellite that skims around the sun and takes readings, and they like didn't expect the readings from the sun?
No.
Holy crap. Yeah, I was reading through it. It was just they said all the readings were unexpected. They didn't really release any of the data, at least from what I've seen. But they just said that there were certain things that were going on there that was unexpected due to its distance. Like they predicted certain things, and all of their predictions were just completely off and wrong. So it was really interesting to actually see that. I don't, like I said, I haven't seen any updates since that article that came out, because again, it was just like one of those overview articles. So I'm waiting to see, and I just haven't looked to do the research. I've just been so busy with this
Well,
holiday
we're all busy.
season.
Yeah, for sure.
Which sucks because it's like, oh, I really like that stuff. That's cool. And then like I'm always interested in like when they give me like Voyager 1 and 2 updates.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, because Voyager 1 like broke through the helisphere like a couple years ago, and Voyager 2 is doing it as well too. And it's funny because there are two different spots where they're going through. Like they're not like 2 isn't following 1. It's not in the same trajectory. It's in a whole different trajectory. And it's just cool to see they're like, well, we know exactly what's going on, but it's getting different readings. So it's like, oh, it's so cool to see like the differences of everything. And they're like, there's this like protective sheath around that's like this fire that, or I guess you could say
The plasma.
yeah, it's like but it's like a fire that it goes
Yeah.
through. And so I'm always interested because it's like, how far can we push ourselves to see?
Well,
That's
which one has the golden record? Is that the Voyager
both
one?
do.
They both have.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is we sent out a golden record that's etched with a naked man and instructions how to get to our house.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we sent
Like,
out a nude.
You know where to find us. But the funny thing is, like, that thing was launched in what, the 70s?
Yeah.
Voyager 1, and I think Voyager 2 was maybe in the 70s too, or like the 80s.
I'd have to look it up.
It wasn't too much longer after, but so they've gone 40 years, and their nuclear batteries are going to run out in a few years, at least in terms of being able to send data back to the Earth. So, wow, that's hella good for
sure.
that range. But they're going to continue on their journey. But think of it this way: it's 40 years, and it's just breaking out of our sun's hold. It's actually just reached interstellar space within the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's like the closest star system is how many light years away? I think it's 4 light years away. So that means that's the distance that star, in terms of light, for like per year, it takes 4 light years from that star's light being emitted from its surface to reach here, to our solar system. It takes 4 light years. That means, and light travels at 180,000 feet per second, or I'm sorry, 180,000 miles per second. It takes 8 minutes from the sun to emit light to the Earth. Like if the sun burned out right now, we would not know for 8 full minutes.
Yeah.
So this is 4 light years away.
Yeah.
So for us to get that like Voyager to go anywhere would take so many years to hit like a star away or a couple stars away, that even if like they knew by that time our sun will probably have consumed us already, or we hit a black hole and got shot out somewhere else.
Very interesting.
So I mean, to me, it's just like, well,
Now, is
I don't
Voyager
see that.
1 out of communication with us now? I think it just sent its last data that they're going to get from it.
No, it's still it'll still show data for a couple years still.
Oh, okay.
They're expecting, I think, it to go to 2024, 2025 range.
Very
So
interesting.
there's still going to be. It's just that there's certain instruments on it that can't send back
okay.
data anymore. It's shut down to its like bare necessities.
Gotcha.
And only certain readings are being taken at this point.
That makes sense.
And I think the same thing with Voyager 2. Like certain things just on its journey just break down.
Yeah.
They get shut off, things like that. So, and then just certain data points can't be transferred because of the distance. So it would come back scrambled, and then they'd have to like piece it together and stuff like that. So it's, it's pretty unique though. I mean, that's cool.
Well,
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sure you've. Oh, go on. No, you finish your sentence.
Oh yeah, I was just curious if they're going to do like a Voyager-esque satellite soon, and then try like a different propulsionary system, like the light sail or something.
Yeah, the solar sail.
Yeah, that would be really cool because you can get up to like 10% the speed of light, or a little bit further, or a little bit higher. I think it's like between 10 and 20%. I don't quote me again because I'm going off bad memory. But yeah, I mean, if you get up to that speed, you will get out of the solar system and go on to another star much quicker. And I'm just wondering if they're ever going to do something like that, or have any plans, because that would be really cool.
It'd be super cool. So I'm sure you've seen you're familiar with the Easter Island heads, right?
Yeah.
What was crazy to me was that
Total
they
conspiracy.
Well, they have these heads sticking out of the ground. For people that don't know, it's on an island and there's these gigantic stone heads. Well, then they discovered that they had bodies, right?
Yeah, each of them have full bodies.
Yeah.
So like they unbury them, and it's like what, like their foot's like, or their head's like 8 feet.
Yeah.
And they realize there's a 20-foot body that's buried in the fucking ground.
Yeah. And then they're like, well, who built these? Nobody knows who built them or why they built them or how they got there, how they moved them. That's the craziest thing. It's like, how did they move these things, right? So there's all sorts of theories on how they moved them and what they were for. They're definitely aliens. Or
So
what
you
they're
just
for.
admitted it. Yeah. There is other life form out there.
on the planet Earth, for sure. So then they didn't know what these things were for. Well, now there's new studies, and studies are always 100% correct.
Theories.
Yep.
Let's say what they are. There's theories that have been put out
Yep.
saying that these heads or these bodies are there for.
They think that they're there to symbolize the, what you're talking about, the bountifulness of crops. Maybe they were superstitious, like if we build these giant heads, our crops will grow better. Or this says that that they're near a bunch of banana, taro, and sweet potato plantations. So they think that they were used to celebrate crop fertility of the soils in the region. Now, people make things for a lot of different reasons. They're superstitious. Maybe that's what they were.
All right, so here's my take on this. First of all, they're full of absolute shit. And I would not believe that in a second. You know why? Because they don't even know who made them.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who made them, you don't know what they made them for, and you're just throwing a theory out there that sounds good.
Yeah.
Because, if you look at them, they're facing the ocean. So there's this little island. It's Easter Island. It's in the Pacific. You can look it up. But the Pacific Islanders bounced around islands and can basically look at the ocean and tell where land is just by looking at the way the coloring is in the sky and the way the reflections are. Like, they're fucking really good at that shit. So that's how they got island hopping. So how do you know that, say, some of these people maybe decided, instead of island hopping, I'm just going to sit at this island and we're going to make these big, massive statues, and we're going to show our strength in our feet. So if anybody looks and sees it, they're going to be like, oh, there's these massive statues of people here. We're going to this island is domain of them. We're not going to go there. We're going to leave it alone. Or you're right. It could be superstition where again, maybe they see these statues and they're like, oh, they're playing into the fear of the other, of somebody else. So they're like, that's the island of the gods. We're not going to go there. So it's like, let's use that information against people. And that probably is a better theory than the theory that these people put there.
Oh, yeah,
I'm just
for
saying,
sure.
because that's bullshit to me. Like, oh yeah, we're doing it for crop fertility. Dude, you have no idea what the reason is. And
Yeah.
if anybody thinks for a second that is the correct thing, just ask, who are the people that built them? I don't know.
Well, what it is they put a theory together by analyzing soil samples around all of the statues.
Yeah,
And they found that the soil samples, I'm paraphrasing,
yeah, I understand that.
they're
But,
much more fertile in the areas by the statues.
okay,
than
you
in
want to
other
know
areas.
why
Like, okay.
they're also more fertile? Because I bet that when they built them, they didn't bury them. I bet what happened was that they put them there, and then all of a sudden, you have all like, I don't know, there could be this wash up. It could have been like all this silt that was going through and just washed up on from the ocean. And, who knows? We don't know what happened.
Well,
We don't know what was caused.
Well, that's my problem. What's super annoying is that, like with the pyramids and with the statues, why didn't whoever make them write down why they made them? That's
Well-
the problem is.
Well, here's we don't know that they didn't do that. That's the thing. Here we have to take other people's word for it.
Yeah, they need to find the stone tablets that they're chiseled into. Like, we're making these statues. We're putting them here for this reason. We're
Yeah,
chiseling it in stone, and here's why.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Let me say a couple of things with that. First of all, there could be tombs that we have yet to discover or have searched through. Maybe there's tombs that they don't allow us to go in or allow people to go in to find these things. Or maybe they already have that information and they want that information kept at bay because it could cause a disruption to their own historical agenda.
Oh, it's a cover up.
It could be. It could be because that's the whole thing with this. And the reason why I come to that conclusion or that thought process is because the whole thing when it comes to the Sphinx.
Yeah.
They say that the Sphinx was eroded by water, which makes sense when you look at it. And some very bright minds have come up with that theory and that thought, which means that the Sphinx would be 13,000-ish years old when water was last in that region. Or around that time frame. So they think it's around that time frame versus the 4,500 years ago that it's tied with the pyramids. And then when you back up, constellations and you back up things, they line up to be more older than that. But then they've done seismology readings of the area around there to see where tombs are and stuff like that, and ground penetrating software. And there's a tomb underneath one of the paws. I think it's the right paw or the left paw in the front, but they will not allow them to go in there to excavate it to see, because all of a sudden there could be a whole new history on why the Sphinx was built or the time frame the Sphinx was built, and that will crush their entire thought process and theory of the whole ancient Egyptian time frame and pyramids and all that
Who
stuff.
cares? When I'm like, oh, my idea was damaged. Oh no.
Well, that's like the people who are like, my feelings are hurt.
Yeah.
I need to get you.
Yeah. I want $130 million.
Yeah. Honestly, it's the same thing because it's crazy because like so many people are set in the way saying this is the way, and they will go to leaps and bounds to keep that the same way because they don't want to be proved wrong. Mm-hmm. Either it's ego, either it's theory that they've put forward, whatever it might be. Their ego is fragile and they don't want to be proven wrong. And that to me, I think is horrible. And you're creating a disservice to the world because you're putting together a theory that just might not be true.
Right. Well, the problem is I don't understand why it's like an automatic response where someone's like, no, you're wrong because of this, they're like, no. And automatically in your brain goes off. It's like, no. And it's hard for people, even when presented with evidence. Like, here's why you're wrong. Sounds right here. The sky is blue. Yeah. They're just, no, it's not. It's purple with yellow polka dots. Because that's what I was taught. It's so crazy.
And and so to me, it's like, well, that doesn't, like, what their theory is and what they state doesn't make sense when there's other evidence that's been brought up. And it's like, okay, well, they don't know really why the pyramids were built. They don't know how they were built.
Nobody left us a note. They got to leave us a note.
I mean, everybody points to Alexandria and the Great Fire of Alexandria and the library there as to holding the secrets to having the pyramids built and the reasons for it. Well, again, that's theory.
Yeah,
we don't know if that's truth or not. We don't know if those texts are in Rome in the Vatican, because they keep a lot of things too. There's so much historical documentation that's kept in the Vatican that we just don't know about. And it's like, well, there's these things that could be there, but because it goes against so much of society and the thought process, religion, everything, that it would change the fabric of our society as we know it, and everything would have to be rewritten, and everything would be just up in the air on to terms of what is right and what is wrong, and what was true and what is not true. So it's this huge thing, and it comes down to the same thing with, like, when you learn history, when you learn U.S. history, it's U.S. based, biased, especially in America. But when you go to another part of the country or the world, they're biased towards their growth of their country. And, like, you can have a lesson that a child will learn about a particular subject that is the same subject, and you hear it differently in the US than you do in that other country, because they're trying, and we're trying, to create this nationalistic ideology that we're all taught, even though sometimes it may not be true. Like, we all were taught Christopher Columbus was this person who discovered America, and yet he's a genocidal, homicidal maniac who was trying to find gold over anything else and wanted to be rich and did anything necessary to do that. And more people are realizing that he was an asshole and crazy at that too. And then we come to realize that there were people who sailed the seas much earlier than that, like the Vikings. And then, there were Native American cultures that have been here for millennia before Christopher Columbus even came here. And we spin it in a way that makes it Western versus Native American teaching and heritage and thought process.
Very interesting. But when you write the book, you get to make the rules.
Yeah. His story is his story.
Yep.
So and that's the whole thing. It's not going to always be accurate. And, that's the same thing with the Bible. You can read the Bible that could talk about historical accounts, and they found certain historical confirmations within the Bible, which makes sense because people are going to talk about it. But some parts are story, some parts are real. We just don't necessarily know what's story and what's real. And that's like with Noah's Ark. Like, was there a great flood? Well, many cultures talk about a great flood. So it's very real, or a real possibility, that there was a giant flood at some point, maybe in different parts of the world. Maybe it's because there was, a meteor impact that flooded the world. Maybe there was, everything melted that flooded many large areas. So when we were talking about our traditions through verbal down generational folklore, or whatever you want to call it, they brought that up over and over again. So maybe when humanity started, there was a giant flood in that area, and then all of a sudden it became culturally known throughout many different cultures, even though we were all focused in one area at one point, but we started spreading, but the story stayed the same.
Yep.
So we just don't know, because there's just not a historical accurate record. And then the question is also, how much information is actually being guarded and kept from the populace and just the mainstream that disproves certain theories, but you don't want that theory disproven because maybe you worked on it. Maybe that was your life legacy. And again, there's too much ego playing into that, and the politics behind it and certain things that go along with it.
Sounds right to me. That sounds right. So what's interesting to me, I'm out of it.
You're out of what?
Out of stuff to talk about.
Oh, so are we calling it earlier?
Yeah, I think we should call it. You got more stuff?
No, I mean, I was kind of out of it today too, and I think it's because, I don't know, it's just been a long week.
Yep, holiday.
The holidays are really just kind of taking it out of you.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, my parents, they did a lot to get good, I had good toys and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I got what I wanted. And that's a lot of effort. Like, now that I look back at it, like my parents, my mother made a good effort to have a good birthday for me. And Christmas was always good.
Yeah. I think most parents do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you don't have kids. I have, my daughter just turned 2. And so she doesn't grasp the concept of Christmas or anything about it. And her birthday was very recent. So, but she understands like the presents, and she likes the gifts and that. She gets that. She already knows that. But she doesn't understand that. So it's like when people ask me, they're like, "Oh, are you ready for Christmas? Or do you enjoy it?" I'm like, "No, it's really just another day for me."
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, it was great. It was a lot of fun. You got together with family. It was magical. If you believed in Santa or not, it was just a good time. And then when you start getting older, it's like, well, I might be single, or even if I'm with somebody, it doesn't hold that same as being a kid or providing for your children. And so it's like, all right, well, it's still the same thing, although it's really cool to start being able to transform that and bring traditions back. So like one of the things that I did all the time every year was we would go to Chestnut Ridge Park because they would do Santaland. So we would go there and we would, they had Santa, and you'd go to the casino, which is like the main part of the park. They'd have like all these little things going on that you could do, like build like little Rudolph and Santa and paint and like do all this really cool stuff there. They'd have food and drinks and stuff. And then you'd take a hayride, which was an actual hayride at that point, to a pavilion that was designed to be like the mailbox, the post office, so you could send your letter to Santa, and it was really cool. And then you could see like the reindeer, so they'd have like Donner and Dasher and Comet and all that fun jazz. And then you'd walk down the candy cane pathway to another place, and that was where Santa was. So you go see Santa, tell him what you wanted, and they made it like a North Pole-esque type thing, which was really cool. And then you'd go sing carols and stuff, get hot chocolate and cookies, and then you'd take the hayride back to the casino. And after that, we would usually go see a movie, go to dinner, and it was just this really nice family tradition. So it was really cool to be able to take my daughter the first time this year to that, and it was a couple weeks ago. And it was just a lot of fun because it's like, I remember this. It's like a tradition that I did. And so it's cool to start doing that, but it's more the season, not necessarily the holiday. So I think next year, when she really can grasp what Christmas is and the meaning of it and the fun of it and the magic of it, not getting, I mean, yes, there's the religious aspect of it, but there's also the magical aspect, meaning, you get this Santa, the giving, the family, the togetherness and all that. I think that's going to be much nicer to see when it comes down to it, because if I didn't have kids, I'd just be like, fuck it, it's another day. Like,
Right.
yeah, I can give gifts and get gifts from family and hang out with family. And, I mean, I go to my mom's house, I'll have dinner there, a couple times a month, or like 1-2 times a month or something. So it's not really that much different in that aspect or those terms. It's just, it's now different because you're able to pass that torch on to your children,
Yeah.
and then watch that happen as they grow up.
Yeah, I think the wonder is, when she gets a little bit older and you have presents that you're excited for her to get and open, and just to see the joy.
Oh, she gets that now. Like there's this thing that it's this. She loves Minnie, like obsessed with Minnie. Anytime she sees Minnie, she's like, oh! Like just insane with, like just obsessed with her. So there's this Minnie that it's like this skating Minnie that she's getting, and when she opens that and she sees it and it talks, so you could press the button and it talks, and it's gonna drive me and her mother crazy.
Oh, that's what I do with all my relatives. I give them all toys that make noise, so drive them nuts. You want a drum kit? Here you go.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like it's gonna, like her face is gonna light up, and she's just gonna be like, oh, and like, so when she sees stuff like that, it's really cool. But when it's more the aspect of, okay, I'm gonna go to bed because it's Christmas Eve. I want to be good.
Yeah.
So I got to go to bed and I got to force myself. And then, I'm going to get somebody to dress up as Santa and like look like they're putting presents out. Cause that's what my parents did for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Which was fucking awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they went above and beyond.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's unfortunate that some people don't try to do that, or don't do that in general. I don't know what the reasons are behind it, but it's that's something that I want to do for my daughter.
Yeah, for sure.
Or if I have other kids on top of that, I want to be able to do that for them as well too, because then I can, because I know how much that meant to me, and it made me enjoy that time frame, the spirit of it.
Yeah.
But like I said, as you get older, it's like it loses its appeal, because it's like, all right, well, Santa.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that because I don't know who's listening, but Santa, everything with that and the spirit of giving and all that changes. But yeah, it's once you get down to it, and the kids, it ignites again.
Oh, for sure. Well, there's two. So for me, I realized I was an adult when I was happy to get socks and underwear. I'm like, I needed these. Thank you. You're an adult then.
I
When
get
you're
that,
happy,
but that's
yeah.
like a gift for a Tuesday.
Yeah, for sure.
That's like getting your wife a trash compactor because you need it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I like giving practical gifts, and
Yeah,
I
me too.
like getting things that I'm going to use.
But I think when we're all adults, like people would be like, oh, this would be so much better if I just kept my stuff. Like you don't, for the kids, I get it, but us adults, So there's this real ride shares. Actually, I'm going to bring this full circle. So while Chris is upstairs, we were talking about Whitney Cummings earlier about the Merry Christmas. I've worked in retail when I was younger, and because of the climate, and because there are a lot of different beliefs and religions out there, and believing in Santa or Christmas is not the only game out there. There are plenty of people out there who do not have Christmas. They celebrate a different thing, and probably more people in the world. I'd have to look up the statistics, but there's a lot of people who don't celebrate Christmas, right? Now, I was always aware of this, but because we got so sensitive in the country of not being able to say one thing or say another thing, what I have always done ever since I was a young adult And what I was taught this, I didn't come up with this on my own, is you say happy holidays because we're in a holiday season. There's Thanksgiving and there's Christmas and it's holiday season. So if you want to be non-denominational and you don't want to offend anyone, anytime I was in a retail situation where I worked at a store, you would say happy holidays because you don't know if that person is whatever. They don't practice Christmas, for example. You don't say Merry Christmas because you don't know if that person doesn't practice Christmas. And it did happen to me where I slipped up one time where I said Merry Christmas. And the person said whatever their religion was, I don't celebrate that. And they were legitimately angry. Now, I don't think that you should be angry because I assumed someone's holiday. Did you just assume my holiday?
No, you know what? I agree that like if you say Merry Christmas to somebody and it wasn't that, it's because you got to remember it's your perspective.
Right.
So my perspective is I celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
A lot of people celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 1 billion Christians in the world.
Yeah.
So it's a big holiday for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, I understand that there's a lot of Jewish, there's a lot of Muslim, there's
Right.
a lot of people, but primarily you run into people that are around there. So it's a perspective thing. If you were Jewish, you would probably say Happy Hanukkah.
Right.
I mean, I get that from Jewish people.
But also-
and it's like, okay, well, Happy Hanukkah to you
For-
as well.
exactly.
Like,
So-
I just because I don't celebrate it, I'm
Right.
not going to get mad that you
That's-
said Happy Hanukkah.
That's exactly it.
Like if I say Merry Christmas to you,
Yeah.
you shouldn't get mad because that's my perspective. I'm walking in my shoes and just
And plus, when people
just
are
be
saying
happy.
Merry Christmas, because it's so popular, they really are just talking about the holiday season.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even saying, oh, Merry December 25th day. Like they're using it to generalize the holiday season anyway. And it's a great point. If you said, hey, Happy Hanukkah to me or Happy Kwanzaa, Aaron, I'm not going to be offended. How dare you assume my holiday?
yeah, I would just or Happy Festivus.
Yeah,
you know,
it's my favorite one.
I would just say thanks, you as well. You know, I'm never gonna get mad about it. Like I said, I've had experiences with Jewish people that are right around the Hanukkah holiday, and they will say Happy Hanukkah, and I say, hey, Happy Hanukkah to
Yeah.
you as well.
For sure.
And I'm not Jewish, but that's their perspective. They're Jewish. Their perspective is that.
And you're not
So
upset because they assumed your
no, I
Hanukkah?
don't- No, I think I'm. You know what? I'm happy that they do that because to me, it's like, it's you're putting them at the same. You're putting that other person at the same level as you. You're not like it's including them, even though they might not be practicing it, even though they might not be celebrating. It's an inclusion thing. So you should be like, you should feel happy about it instead of being pissed off. Like, why get pissed off about it? The whole point is to be with family, to be with friends, to experience joy and happiness and camaraderie and togetherness. That's what Hanukkah does. That's what Christmas does. That's what Kwanzaa does. All these holidays are trying to bring people together.
Right.
So why do you have to get so pissed off?
Yeah.
If somebody, I don't celebrate.
Well, that's what happened.
Happy to whatever day you want to celebrate.
That's what happened
I don't
to
give
me.
a shit.
So the general vernacular, because I was in retail as a salesperson, you say happy holidays because you don't want to assume someone's holiday, right?
Well, I get offended at Happy Holidays.
Yeah. So you say happy holiday season or happy, you don't say Merry Christmas because you don't know if that person celebrates Christmas or not. And that's what I was always taught. I did slip up one time and the person got super upset because they don't celebrate Christmas. I'm like, oh, why are you up? Maybe they're mad because they don't get presents.
I don't know.
How dare you assume someone's...
But that's the whole thing. It's like, just
Yeah.
embrace it.
Yeah.
You know,
to
be
me,
inclusive.
that's-
Feel included.
yeah, in society, we should be celebrating everyone's different viewpoint and everyone's views. And you all have something to learn from everyone else. So I would like to learn about other religions. I would like to learn about Festivus. Tell me about your Festivus.
Festivus for the rest of us.
Yep. I will leave
No,
it
you
at
know
that.
what though? That's the whole thing. It's like we should be able to sit down and talk. Like things should be, I mean, not argumentative or anything. Like just do a round table. Like a round table is just discussion. Sit down, discuss. If you have a different view or thought or idea explain it. Why do you think that? Why share it with me? Because you know what? I'd rather know about your perspective of things, because it can help shape and mold my perspective on things, or be more aware of people who are out there other than my own, so I can be a better person overall. So, I mean, there's many ways to look at things in several issues. Like there because an issue isn't cut and dry for the most part. There's a lot of several factors going into it. Most people always pick the extremes of it and talk about those issues when it's like, that's the extremes.
Right.
That's
yeah.
like the outliers of
right.
it. But in the general realm of the majority of it, you know, let's bring it back into real perspective.
Right.
And yeah, there's still many ways to look at certain
Well,
issues.
you know,
And it's like, well, I want to hear what you thought. I want to hear what you think. I want to hear what other people think. So then that way we can come up with better thoughts and better ideas that will increase our who we are, our productivity, our abilities, and maybe we can learn from each other instead of being so divisive and issue based.
Well, that's my whole issue with pretty much everything, is when you talk about like trade policy, or you talk about recycling, or you talk about, you know, energy sources. Everything is so much more nuanced than what is really happening. And once you really look into things, it's so complicated and so in depth that you'd have to be an expert in that field to be able to really know what you're talking about. A friend of mine the other day was saying, "Oh, this person did this and this." I'm not going to get into politics, but I go, "Well, yeah." I know that that's what they're saying on the news, but in reality, the issue is so much more nuanced than that. And if you really look at the statistics, there's ways to skew those numbers to make it all look good. And here's why you're wrong. They're not including this. They're not including that. And once you look into the issue, it's so much more nuanced and in depth that you'd have to really be an expert in that subject. And I think that sitting down and talking to people, you're right, is we all can learn something from other people.
And that's the whole thing. Like for me, I'm a curious person. I want to know, like, because I've said this before, and I'll say it again right now, because I've gone through school and because I've seen so many things that said one thing while I was in school, and then I watch an episode or a series, or I read articles or studies that completely disprove a lot of the things that you learn in school.
For sure.
And at first I'm like, wait, I thought this was this way, when in fact it's really this way. So why are we learning it? And then for me, instead of getting pissed off at something, I kind of try to look at it and say, well, if I was taught this way this many times and was wrong that many times because I was learning it, what else don't I know?
Right.
Or what else was I taught that isn't true?
Right.
So for me, I don't sit there and say, oh, that's wrong because I learned it this way. I'm like, okay, well, show me. And I want to know, like, I'm like, all right, cool. I value and respect that opinion. To me, it may be wrong. To you, it may be right. But I'm not going to say anything for or against it. I'm just going to say, okay, that's cool. I respect your thought. I respect your opinion. It may have an impact on me, and it may not. I might just say, oh, that's not true, or that is true, or however it may shift my opinion or not. You know, I'd rather find out what other people's thoughts and opinions or perspectives or history is overall, because like I said, what we learned and what we were taught, realize that a lot of it was bullshit.
For sure. And to that point, I think that what we're not taught is how to be self-reflective and try to realize our own impacts on the world and other people, which I try to be these days much more self-reflective. And I need to work on what you just said. When I hear something that I know is wrong in my head, or someone is not as informed or is blatantly wrong, it triggers something in me. And then that argumentative Italianness and also a need to be right for some reason comes out. And I'm not good at communicating and I'm not. It's a whole thing that I really need to work on.
Yeah.
Where
I mean, for you, that process, you just need to step back and say,
yeah,
all right, well, first of all, you got to get out of your head that you're right or
Yeah.
wrong, because you could be arguing a point that is perspectively correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I say perspectively correct because at your perspective, it's right. But in another person's perspective, they're also right.
yeah,
So, but again, it's a connection that's on the other side of the ball,
Yeah.
essentially. And
see, that's a better way to look at it, because I'm like, in reality, this is correct. In reality, there isn't a perspective, because that's what I love science for. In science, there's not a perspective. There's only facts in reality.
yeah,
sometimes
but
those
that's
are
the whole
proven.
thing with science, though, too, is that most of it is all theory.
No,
And yes,
I disagree.
right there is
Science
your
are
problem.
fact. No,
Right
science
there,
is facts.
You're getting right into it. First of all, there's the theory of relativity. There's the theory of quantum mechanics. There's the theory of this. There's the theory of that. Everything is a theory, and they base all of their continuing tests on that to try to test it if it's either provable or disprovable. And now they're coming up with things that can't even be tested, so it can't be disproven either.
Yeah.
So like saying we're in a simulation or we're in a multiverse, we cannot prove that in any way, but yet you can't discredit it because it's a theory that's put forward. We just can't decipher because we can't prove it. We can't test it yet. So even science lacks a lot. The only thing that's actually in truth is mathematics.
I get what you're
That's
saying.
really it.
But you're talking about a small sliver of what actual scientists are doing, who are taking measurements, writing down data, repeating experiments, and proving things. You're
That's
right to where
experimentally based that they can
that's
actually
the
go
bulk
back and
of
say,
science.
yeah, but no, it's not. There's so much out there that they don't know that they're trying to figure out. That's what the theories and the fringes of science are.
Yeah,
it's expanding that.
you're talking about a small sliver of
I'm
experimental.
talking about a lot of information there. That
Right.
is a lot more
But
than
that's-
And I'm already going to stop you here because you're getting into that stupid ass mentality. That
yeah,
you
well,
just
here's
said.
what it is. Like, I love this stuff.
Yeah, but you
I
just
learned
got into this mentality
Yeah.
again where you're saying, no, you're wrong. And again,
So what are
it's a
you supposed to do
perspective
when you
thing.
have knowledge about something,
You say-
and the
you-
person that is telling you something like the Earth is flat,
But
and it's
I'm not saying
round,
the earth is flat.
But what you're saying is
no, no.
incorrect. So what do
no,
you do?
I am
when,
not. I am correct.
I
as
know you
well.
think you're correct.
All right, here's the thing. If you continue with this, I'm shutting the podcast
No, I
off.
think it's coming over, because this is something that I have to work on for myself. When I hear things, when you tell me that science is all theoretical and most of
I didn't
science
say
is theoretical,
no, stop
and
putting
it's
words
not,
into my mouth
okay,
because I didn't say all science is theoretical. I said a lot of science
You said
is
most of it.
theory.
Yeah.
No, I said a lot of it
Well,
is.
I get your perspective where you can't actually prove anything. I can't prove that this is metal. I can't prove that this is the color blue physically, but all of the experiments that we do would say that this is here right now. This is the color blue here, and it's the color blue because of this reason. And we have all of the experiments to pretty much narrow it down that it can't be the color blue for any other reason except for these scientific facts that we've done tons of experiments and we know.
Actually, you're wrong on the color blue because here's the thing. It reflects all other colors but absorbs that color right there. So right there, you're wrong.
So you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I
but
can't
I'm
prove
giving-
why
I'm giving-
water
I'm giving
freezes
it
at
back to you.
32 degrees. Well, no. So I get what you're saying where, okay, we do experiments over and over again. And in this environment, water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Water
I'll
boils
give
at
you that,
212
but
degrees.
You're wrong that it boils at 30 or that it freezes at 32 at all places because that's not true. If you're
That's
at sea
why I
level,
said in
if
this
you're at
atmosphere.
sea level or if you're in the mountains, it freezes at a different
That's why I
temperature.
said at this
Same
atmosphere.
thing with boiling point.
Right.
Same exact thing.
So when we go, and that's why I said at this atmosphere. So when we go to that sea level, water is never going to boil at anything higher, and those are repeatable scientific experiments that we say that there's no other possible way that this could be happening except for this reason. We've tried every other angle. We've done all of this research, and at the best of our scientific ability right now, this is the reason why this happens.
Yeah, but what about that theory that was just put forward that says all of reality can be completely manipulated, and so we don't really know what's real
See, now
around us.
Now you're into the theoretical.
But what I'm saying is that theory disproves every other scientific test that they've ever said, because our reality is shapeshifted, or however the theory. I didn't read the full thing. I don't really care.
Right.
Because they use a lot of terms in that's just so far out there that like I don't have that knowledge in, and I don't want to study that for years on end to understand it. But what I'm saying is, like, they'll say that it's warped. So like what we've experienced, what we've observed, what we looked at, it's all BS because this theory would disprove it. But again, that theory cannot be proven in any
exactly.
way.
Show me how you'll measure that. So all we can do is use the tools that we have right now to measure our environment, and that's what science is, right? So when someone tells me things that when we do measurements as scientists and have repeatable data, or people have much more nuance, going back to what I was saying, that it's always much more nuance. The problem with pollution, or the problem with energy, or the problem with, it's always much more in depth or nuance that people who are in the field know much more about. Well, when someone presents to me arguments that are contrary to actual scientific data, I don't know how to handle and say, I see your point and I get where you're coming from, but that's not what is happening in reality. And I have a real hard time like trying to convey that to other people, which I have to work on.
Here's the other thing. The big thing that you need to realize is that memory sucks. So some of the things that you say may not be true, but you'll fight it tooth and nail. And I mean, I will stop the argument beforehand before trying to prove anything, because I just don't, first of all, I don't have the patience, the care, or the necessity to want to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not there to argue facts. I'm not there to argue. I'm there to share perspective,
right? To
share thoughts, to share ideas.
Yeah, that's a better way of looking at it.
And that's the whole thing that you need to realize, is that what your thoughts, what your perspectives are, is going to be different from every other single person in this world.
Yeah.
Because of everything, every step that you've taken, everything that you've seen, everything that you have read, whatever you've experienced throughout your entire life shapes exactly who you are at this moment. Whether that's fact-based, whether that's truth-based, whether that's opinion-based, whether that's anything-based. It's all done through previous, gathering of knowledge, gathering of perspective, and every other single person has a complete different brought up point of the same exact thing. And that's the whole thing. That's why twin studies are so amazing, because they're twin, especially the identical twins, because they're from the exact same genome. But over time, they're different. Mm-hmm. Like first of all, their genome changes a little bit and gets tweaked. So they are two completely different people, and how they perceive the world is different over a certain amount of time, which is an amazing thing. But again, that's because their perspective, even though it's could be almost the exact same, is just slightly different. Maybe because this person sat 6 inches this way when this person sat 6 inches that way, and just that perspective, that shift, just changed it ever so slightly. Or maybe during a lesson in school, this person, or twin A, was looking outside and saw a bird flying and didn't hear the same message that the teacher was saying as twin B did, who was taking it in full. So that perspective shifted, and that perspective changes and starts shaping their differences between everything. And that's the whole thing. It's like, so when you sit down and talk to somebody, instead of saying you're wrong based on a fact that, one, it could be wrong because your memory can suck.
Yeah, I
and
get
you got to
that.
realize that. And you have to be able to allow another person to argue their point.
Right.
And instead of being the asshole saying you're wrong, you even trying to disprove them in any way, shape, or
Well, I just need
form.
more tact. But my issue is not that. It's not even that I need to be right. It's that when I have knowledge much more than the other person is clearly displaying. But my issue is that
I understand that, but
my issue is when they're causing detriment to the ideas that they're spewing forth are causing detriment to someone else or themselves. For example, a friend of mine read an article about eating sulfur, that you should eat pounds and pounds of sulfur every day. Right now, it turns out that the person who wanted this, who was pushing the sulfur, just bought a bunch of sulfur on the internet in bulk. But they tried to use a fake. They're like, I took all these pictures of people before and after eating sulfur, which wasn't even real, by the way. And they called themselves a doctor, but they're not a real doctor. They didn't go to medical school and get licensed. They just call themselves a doctor, right?
I understand that. And I know where you're going.
Yeah.
But you know how I said
It's
that
like,
people are using extremes?
Yeah.
You're using extreme right there because yes, everybody knows sulfur is bad for you. It's been proven many times.
Everyone knew that, but
And
apparently they don't.
it's just like the people who say drink bleach that is
exactly my
healing.
point.
And it's the same people that say the earth is flat.
That's exactly it.
One of the questions is, first of all, you shouldn't be saying, well, you're wrong. You should be like, why are you thinking that way?
That's what I have to work on.
And that's the whole thing. You need to open up your mind and try to figure out why you think that way, or why that thought process is your process.
Right.
Because we all know that the world is round. To anybody who thinks that the earth is flat, it's round. I mean, just look at any other planet out there. But
so how do you approach it when the person is like, you're stupid and you need to look deeper because the earth is flat and it's a conspiracy against you? And you're like, well, wait a minute.
That's when you just need to
I went to
realize,
school for this and I know that the earth is round.
but you need to learn to realize that what you say does not matter to that person. And they're just going to be stupid, essentially. And you can make a joke to yourself, or you can laugh it off and say, all right, whatever. It's not worth my time. And that's the whole thing. You need to realize what's worth your time and what's not. And sometimes telling people, I mean, because like I've seen you do it to things that it's perspective based.
Yeah.
It's not 1 + 1 = 2 based. It's not mathematically based, where, like I said, mathematic is the only law that's out there that's true. Like 1 + 1 is 2. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Like there's no other perspective. It's cut, it's dry, it's black and white. It's not gray. But anytime there's any sort of gray, even an infinitesimal amount, that's where a perspective can form. And that shift in perspective, whether it's right or wrong, is, again, there's multiple ways to get to a point.
Right.
Like from your house to my house, there's a countless amount of ways to get there. Whether they're efficient to get there or inefficient, it doesn't matter. There's multiple ways to get there. And that's the thing. You need, like, you're looking at, this needs to be the most efficient way, and any other way isn't right because this is the way that you have to go. When in actuality, I mean, I could go from here to San Francisco and back again, and that's still a way to get from my house to your house.
Well, for sure.
And clearly inefficient, but it's still right.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to step back and realize. And then again, the curiosity thing is, well, what makes you think that? Why do you think that? Well,
that's my issue.
And instead of buckling down the hatches and saying, no, you're wrong, you should ask, well, why do you think that? What is your thought? Where did you get that from?
Right.
And then that way you can really, then at that point you can start picking away and say, well, I've learned it this way.
Right.
And, I saw it, because if you don't do it, you're going to come off as an asshole who thinks they know it all. And then nobody's going to want to be around that or associate with that.
Right. Well, that's what my issue is that, like, I don't know a lot about mechanics. I have a general idea of how a combustion engine works, right? But I could not rebuild a car. So I would defer to someone who does know how to build a car, no matter how they learned it. But if they have experience in a garage, or if they went to school for it, or whatever.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
I would understand that person has more knowledge than me about building that car, because they do.
Here,
that.
let me interject one thing for you. There also can be a bullshit artist who can bullshit their way, making it seem like they know more about a car than you, even though they really know nothing about a car. And
that's what my issue is.
And that's the whole thing. It's like, you got to separate it. But again, if you start questioning people, you're going to find out who's an actual expert, who actually knows the information, and who's the bullshitter.
So if you were that mechanic and you're listening to someone who's trying to tell you how to get more horsepower out of your car, that clearly has never even worked on a car and has no idea
you'll
what
know
they're
right
actually
away.
Exactly.
But you have that knowledge
so
behind
then
it.
How do you then tell that person, well, look, I do this for a living. This is my forte. Here is why you are incorrect in your things that you learned on the internet.
I get your point there, what you're bringing up.
Yeah, that's what my difficulty is.
And I mean, at that point, it's like, again, you just got to learn how to pick your battles.
For sure.
You just got to learn and shut the fuck up and let people have one every once in a while. And again, it's like, yeah, I get that they're going to be wrong, or other people are wrong. And the other thing is, though, you could be wrong too.
For sure.
And
it's not that they're wrong. They just don't have the knowledge.
Hold on. But when you are wrong and you fight tooth and nail, that's where you're the asshole and you look like an asshole. And again, people are going to, and trust me, I was just like that. I was very similar to that, where I'd be like, I would argue tooth and nail. So that's why my perspective is telling you to shut the fuck up at times, because essentially that's the truth.
Right.
You just need to, all you have to do is question things and say, why did you get there? Why do you think that? And entertain that for a little bit. And here's the other thing. Instead of trying to prove them wrong, just go with it a little bit.
Yeah.
So you watch Kitboga.
Yeah, I haven't in a while, but
you haven't in a while, but you like his stuff. So anybody who's listening who doesn't know who Kitboga is a streamer on Twitch. He also has a YouTube channel, and it's both are Kitboga.
Yeah.
He calls scammers, and whether it's the IRS scam, Social Security scam, Roku scam. He does a lot of tech baiting scams, though, and he's a scam baiter. So he calls them, wastes their time. So he exposes how the scam is, so people who watch it or know about it can understand, oh, this is a scam. So if you are in a similar situation, you can navigate your way out of it, or just hang up the phone. You don't have to talk to these people anymore. And then he also wastes their time. So in turn, they are stuck on the phone with him or other scam baiters and not actually scamming people, which is great. And then when he gets certain information, he passes it along to the proper people. So if he gets bank accounts, he can go to the corrective bank and get that shut down, or to people maybe who are on a list and shut that down before they get called with scams. So Kitboga doesn't say, like, during the reveal, he'll be like, how do I want to handle it? Do I want to just go from the granny voice who's talking about? And he's got a voice changer of everything, and it's great. But he could go from a voice and then all of a sudden to his own and say, dude, I know you're scamming. And they will fight tooth and nail saying, oh, you're the scammer. You're the one who's wasting our time.
They get so angry.
This is legitimate. And that's the whole like, we poke fun at that and we laugh at that as people watching, because it's like, you're fighting tooth and nail on, even though you are absolutely wrong. And I'm not saying this isn't with you.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it's like I'm using
No, I get
like you as would be Kit Boga, and he's like, dude, I know you're real.
Yeah.
And he's like, he does it in a cool, collective way.
Yeah, that's what I
he's
gotta
like,
work on.
you know, you're wrong, and
Yeah.
you does it feel good scamming people
Yeah.
and stealing money from an 86-year-old woman? And he and then other times he won't reveal it at all. He'll just be like, oh, I'm done talking with you, and like,
See, that's
it
where
just
I lack.
And it's like, you just gotta, I mean, those people are clearly wrong and clearly lying and clearly untruthful.
Yeah.
And they're so brainwashed to think that they are the correct, or their ego gets so shot and shattered that even though they were proven wrong, they have to try to feel better because they just wasted 3, 6, 10
Right,
hours on the phone getting scam baited by somebody you're trying to scam. And so it's, I mean, he'll ask him, he'll be like, look, why do you do this? Like, he's just asking, and they'll flip the fuck out. And sometimes that's more bittersweet in the end, because he doesn't, dude, he's like, you're fucking wrong. You need to stop.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You do the opposite, where it's like, you're fucking wrong. You need to stop. Like, that's wrong. No, you need to play with it. You could play with it a little bit and get some comedic joy out of it.
For sure.
You don't need to be the confrontational person to try to convince everybody that they need to be on your side or your same thought, when in fact, does it really make a difference?
No.
In any way, shape, or form?
I'm glad that you said that, because I've been interested in a lot into different philosophies, and I've been listening to a person who was trained from like a 2,500-year-old philosophy, and it still holds up to where you have to understand the person that you're talking to. And that's what my issue is. I get so blinded by, like, when I hear something that's incorrect and I know that it's incorrect, and I'm like, I don't have any tact where I don't understand that the person that I'm talking to is not ready to even hear any other viewpoint or any other perspective or facts that of why they're incorrect, or just don't have the knowledge. And there's a lot of, I don't know anything about anything. I know a small amount about a little bit of things that I learned, but there's always much more in depth to it. I only know a little bit, but when someone who knows even less than that is trying to tell me that, it just warps me in my brain, and I don't have any tact. So also I heard that you can either be right or you can be loved. And I think that's the lesson that I want to go away with. You could either be right or you could be loved. I'd rather be loved than be right. So I'm really going to have to work on that. But I'm glad you brought up the scam, and here's why. So because it's holiday season, there's a new scam that's pretty tricky. When you go to buy cards at the store, a gift card, people are printing out the barcode on the back of the gift card and putting their own barcode to their own gift card on the back of the gift card. So when you scan that gift card and pay whatever money, that money goes to their gift card and they spend it right away. Now, normally you'd be able to match the barcode that is on the back of the card with the actual card. The last digits are supposed to match.
With all the digits.
Yeah. Well, now they're smart enough to even match those digits. So you really have to be diligent to make sure that there's no sticker on there. Make sure that and I would have never thought of that when these thieves are getting so tricky. Other thing I heard about was when you would talk about Kit Boga, who is the genius of our time. That guy's
when
awesome.
It comes to scam baiting,
yeah,
absolutely.
For sure. If you watch how intricate and in depth he is programming it, and
I highly suggest like going on YouTube and watching Kit Boga.
Oh, awesome.
I mean, Twitch is one thing, but the YouTube series or the channel that he has kind of condenses it down into like maybe like 30-40 minutes, sometimes longer. Before, when he first started doing YouTube, they were all like the entire call itself, but it breaks it down so you can actually see the scam setup, how it works, because he has a whole system in place that they can connect to his computer. He can do all these phone calls and run through the script, so people who watch understand the script. So I do highly recommend at least going to the channel, watching a few of the different ones. And so then that way you can see how these scams are set up.
Yep.
And there's a scam for every business out there. There's a scam for it.
There definitely is.
There's a Comcast scam. There's a Spectrum scam. There's a Roku scam. There's a Netflix scam. There's and crazy amounts of scams.
So one of the good things is, I don't know if it was Kitboga or somebody got called by a scammer, was able to effectively say, why are you doing this? You know that you're robbing people. You know that you're causing hardship for people. How do you live with yourself knowing that you're doing this? Talk to the person working in that call center into now being on their side. So whenever the scammer would hear other people about to lose a lot of money, he would tip this person off, and they would start calling the people repeatedly and trying to get them to pick up the phone and not get scammed and not lose their money. So this has been going on. He would I read an article, I'd have to look it up, where
there's a few people that are like,
so they got an insider now who is trying to help people, and he would pay him like $100 for every person that he helped not lose all the money. And I'm thinking okay, who is falling for this? I think elderly people fall for this. A middle-aged person.
You want to know what's really funny? That you think a lot of elderly fall for it, yes.
They all do.
And a lot do, because some of the way that their script is to just instill fear.
That's what happened.
And confusion. Yep. That's the big thing. So they'll transfer the phone to multiple people at one time and to handle it differently. And it's to instill confusion. It's to instill craziness and fear into the person. And then on top of that, it's not just old people that fall for these things, but also it is younger people that are falling for this, because a lot of younger people just take everybody's word for it, and it'll just be like, oh, here, I need this information. Oh, here you go. So all you have to do is just sound convincing. And you could be like, all right, well, I need certain information from you. So I need your first name to verify your account or to verify whatever it might be. So they're like, oh, okay, what's your first name? You say it. What's your last name? They say it. What's your phone number? They say it. Your address? They say it. Your social security number? And they say it. And people don't really think twice, especially if they think they're on the phone, Googling the phone number. And that's the other thing too. Like, oh, I don't know the phone number for Netflix, so I'm going to look it up on my phone on, the first page on Google, type it in, and the first thing that pops up is this 1-800 number, but it's not really Netflix. It's a call center scam. It's a scam call center pretending to be Netflix. And that way, when they call up and they say, oh, my Netflix account's having problems, then they're like, oh, yeah, that's when we need to verify the information. So that's why a lot of younger people are falling for these scams, just because they just give information freely, because that's how our generation and younger is starting to do. Because you give your information to YouTube, you give your not YouTube, to Facebook, you give your information to Twitter, you give your information to all these places that you have subscriptions to, and you just go with it.
Oh, and my job in my undisclosed location, I talked to a girl whose landlord stole her information and was signing up for all sorts of different things with her stolen information. Now, here's the other thing that happened. A coworker of mine, I felt so bad because her sister-in-law parents got a call that her kid was kidnapped. My coworker's kid was kidnapped. The sister-in-law's parents got this phone call.
Which never really happened, by the way.
Yeah. So
but it's a scam.
They gave up $10,000. They went and got gift cards and got $10,000 worth of gift cards. Now, my coworker was telling me a story. She said, I was so mad at my sister-in-law because my sister-in-law did not text me, did not call me and say, hey, is your kid okay? Is everything okay? Because they use fear and say, oh, we're watching you. And, if you do or say anything, and it's, so
some of those kidnapping, quote unquote kidnapping scams, they'll somehow get the voice of the person and it'll sound like them.
That's what
and
she
they can
said.
get recordings off of if you answer your phone,
Yep.
answering certain questions, and they can get that information. So it seems legit,
Yeah.
even though it's really not. And all you have to do would be call that person. And I mean, it's very easy to find out. Like I could find all of your family members because I could just go on and do a Google
it's
search
so
on
easy.
you and find your parents, you find your
yeah.
siblings, find everything. And it's very simple to do that. And then I can just use that information against you.
That's exactly
and
what
make
happened.
it seem like it's legit, even though it's not.
Like I'm Johnny. I'm in the Dominican Republic. I'm in jail. I need $10,000 bail.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't believe because a lot of the call center people are foreign.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, well, didn't they notice that it's like a foreign person? She said, no, they pretended to be the voice of one of my children. And she's like, I was so mad at my sister-in-law for not even texting me and saying, hey, is your kids okay? Is everything okay? Or doing something. And they just went and drove and got $10,000 in gift cards and shoop.
Yeah,
So it happens everywhere.
And at that point, if you were the person who was this sister that said, I can't believe she did that, that's like you can't go and be like, well, you were fucking wrong. You're stupid.
Yeah.
Like, because you're gonna come off as the asshole. You gotta be
get
like,
it.
shit. You should have called me. I don't know why you didn't. And like, I mean, yeah, you lost $10,000. That sucks. And then hopefully, let's try and figure out how we can, get that back some way somehow.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's the other thing. I'm glad to see it where it was shitty memory. I completely forgot. So they didn't tell anyone. It's the sister-in-law and the sister-in-law's parents. Mm-hmm. The sister-in-law's parents and the sister-in-law didn't tell anyone in the family that this whole rigmarole even happened.
Well, the reason why that they don't tell the parent or that they don't tell anyone,
Well,
right?
because they're threatened.
Yeah. Because part of the scam, part of that scam is they will threaten you by saying, if you tell anybody about this, we're going to come after you or something like that. And they're blatantly like fear mongering you in some way, somehow. And that's why she probably like, don't text anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Don't let them know.
We're going to,
and that's the whole thing.
That's exactly what
like,
happened. So then during the holidays, the kid that was supposedly kidnapped goes over there for the holidays, and the grandparent goes to the kid, goes, okay, now that it's just me and you, tell me what really happened with the money. Suspecting that maybe the kid faked his own kidnapping to get money, because you never know, right? So the grandparents start getting suspicious. So now they're accusing my coworker's kid. Well, not accusing, but she go, now that it's just me and you, tell me what really happened with the money. And the kid's going, what money? What are you talking about? You can tell me. It's just us. I'm not going to be mad at you. So then my coworker goes, what are you talking about? What money? And they have to, well, we were told that he was kidnapped and that $10,000 needed to tell us what happened. What are you talking about? We didn't know anything about this kidnapping. So now that the cat's out of the bag, my coworker is super pissed that the grandparents are accusing her kid of running some kind of scam. She's like, I know that you're accusing him.
well, see, and that's the whole thing. It's like, it seemed so suspicious at the time. And it's like I said, they can get the voice some way somehow.
Yep, that's what happened.
And then all of a sudden they call and it seems legit, even though it's bullshit and it's a scam.
Yep.
And if it seems suspect,
you're
going to face the person that's going to be most suspect.
That's exactly what happened.
And so your coworker needs to realize that, but I mean, and then you got to get the benefit of the doubt. So again, this is one of those things where there's a huge gray area. It's not black and white.
Yep.
So there's different perspectives that you need to look at it and realize, okay, well, this is why they look at it this way. And that's the whole thing. You question. So, okay, why do the grandparents look at it that way? Well, the grandparents aren't stupid. They seem something suspect there.
They heard little Jimmy's voice.
And so they're like, all right. And then the aunt is like, all bewildered and crazy, and then the coworker, the sister, is like, "No, what the hell is wrong with you?" But it's you see, all right. Well, there's all of these competing issues and all these things going on, and they're all coming together, and that's the whole thing on why they have those different perspectives.
That's exactly what happened, and the only thing she was really mad about, she was mad because they accused the kid at first. Well, didn't accuse, but even asking. Like, okay, what really happened to the money? You're kind of like, yeah, the kid would do this. And she's like, we'd never do anything like that. And then, yeah, it is kind of like, you have to be like, why didn't you text or why didn't you call? But again, it's that fear. They don't understand that the fear that these people they've done the scam so many times. They know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly it. They instill that fear, and you think that person's going to get hurt if they do that. And that's how like actual kidnappings do sometimes, may happen.
It definitely is.
And it's just this weird and wild, crazy thing.
Yeah.
I mean, most kidnappings that are actual are like usually relatives or close family,
for sure,
known. And there's certain issues, but that's a different point.
Well, yeah, don't get scammed out there, people. I don't know if it's because I'm Italian.
No,
and I have been kind of scammed twice.
The thing is, it's just question everything.
Yeah,
you should always be questioning.
Yeah,
question every person, everything. Just question it.
Right.
Say, am I? And that's one thing you should do too. Question it. Sometimes your mind can get the better of you, and you should question it.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the whole thing. Like, instead of accusing somebody of being wrong, question your thoughts. Question you. Say, am I wrong? Even if you might be right, say, am I wrong? You need to know 110% that you're right. And if you're not 110%, which you'll never be 110% because there is no such thing as 110, 100% is the highest you could go. And it's always 99.998% because there's no, like I said, the only way is mathematical.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else can be disproven, even though it may under certain circumstances or certain knowledge, be proven over and over and over and over again. But once new knowledge is entwined with that, it can change the outcome of that same experiment. So those things can have a different impact once we go through and have a different knowledge. Also, it can also be, well, we know part of it, but what we thought we know is we got to take back and reconstruct all of that, because maybe what we thought was happening isn't the reality of it. Even though we can see the reaction of it, we just don't necessarily know everything that's going on. And that's like the double slit experiment. Like, you when the observer's introduced, it changes the way things are when being observed versus not, and that's a whole heap law I'm not getting into.
Right.
But it's just showing the interjection of how things act.
Right. Well, that's my issue. That's a great example. So if I just said to you, the double slit experiment is we fire electrons through this thing, or not even electron, we fire things through this thing and they create a wave. And if we do it this other way, it's because of this. Now, if you don't have knowledge and you don't know exactly what's happening and the reason that that's causing it, but you saw something on the internet that says that black holes are causing that, and then you are telling other people that black holes are causing it.
Again, you're using a ridiculous remark when just how to explain the double slit experiment, period, is taken out of context when they're just trying to explain it, because most people aren't particle physicists and don't understand it, including myself and yourself.
Well, me, yeah.
So we can't, and that's the whole thing.
Once you learn,
all you have to do is question, because and that's the other thing, because we're not scientists in that field of study, we don't understand that. We can only understand the overview that they're giving, which there's still so much more information, and or so much more information regarding that particular subject.
Yeah.
And what knowledge you may have is maybe at this spot of the
Right.
spectrum, when the other person has this spot of the spectrum, which is completely opposite or completely different.
Yeah.
And again, maybe a certain studies, and again, it's you should be questioning you shouldn't be questioning them.
Right.
Question yourself. Question what you think, what you thought.
Well, my issue is,
and then
it's-
that way, if you're questioning things, it's going to make
my issue is with people who don't have any of the knowledge. I did something to my thing here. Who don't have any of the knowledge, and then are trying to say things that are incorrect. That's what triggers me.
Yeah, but and again, you don't necessarily know if they're triggering, or you don't know what their knowledge is, and you can't argue on the basis when, again, it's a perspective based.
No, what I mean is when they say things that are wrong, that are legitimately wrong, or not. Maybe I'm using a different word. Not informed.
Yes, but what I'm using is a real world example.
Yeah.
When you, me, and our friend were sitting down, and you both got into an argument. You were correct, and she was correct. You guys were just arguing.
No,
her
kid was correct.
No. Hold on. Stop.
Her kid was correct.
Stop. You both were correct at the perspective you were talking about. I could see the perspective because I was questioning both of you at the same time. So I can understand their perspective. I can understand your perspective. You were coming both at it at completely different angles, and that was where the disconnect was. If I was trying to bridge that, but I'm not rehashing that in any way, shape, or form. In fact, we're going to end this at that aspect.
What I'll end with is the issue there with our friend.
No,
First of all,
we're not rehashing it.
No,
we're
I'm not
done with
rehashing
that.
it,
And there's
but-
no reason to bring it up to anybody because we're not getting into
Yeah,
it. So
we're going to finish the conversation. So
there is no
first of
more
all,
conversation.
the issue that happened that night was because of a
again, you're arguing a point.
I'm
that's
just explaining
irrelevant.
So there's that normally would never happen except for it was the bullying of the things that you weren't seeing behind the scenes for the past 10 years of like every time I'm presented with something,
Look,
I'm right. But that came to a head.
Again, I just don't care.
But also what happened there is that our friend was trying to make a very specific point. I get exactly what she was saying about a very specific, tiny little sliver of part of
you're
the
doing
facts.
it right now.
Well, you're not allowing.
But
so you can't just decide I don't want to talk about something anymore.
See, here's
I'm
the
just
thing.
going to stop it.
No, see, because here's the thing. We've been down that path. If you're trying to explain something to me when anybody else who's listening is going to be so lost in the
they're
field,
not.
there's
They're not going to be
reason
lost.
to
That's
talk
why
about
I'm
it.
explaining this. So our friend was trying to argue a very small point about a very broad subject that I know a lot about, and they weren't understanding that. Yes, I understand your very small point, and you are correct in this very small, narrow point. But in the general sense, you're completely off base about what you're saying. And that's where you weren't cooperating with me, where I kept saying, dude, you're not helping.
Because
Like, I have much more knowledge.
I was trying to
Yeah.
connect the both of you. And again,
Yeah.
I don't want to have this conversation.
No, that's all I have to say about it.
Because, again, the people who are listening are going to be so lost in
Yeah.
any way because we never said anything specific about it.
I get it.
So there's no reason to ever explain yourself. And again, it's knowing when to say something and when not to say something. And that's the whole, like, bite your damn tongue.
For sure.
And that's why I say, just don't bring it up.
Yeah.
Stop. Because
normally
there's
I do.
no reason to bring it up because
Normally I do.
nobody's going to understand it.
Yeah, normally I do.
So, by the way, we went a lot longer than we expected,
Oh,
especially, but we had some good points, and that's the fun part. And so, let's get into our quote of the
I don't have
evening.
one. So I'm going to wish everyone a happy Festivus for this year because you can't say anything else.
Well, when this goes live, it's going to be beyond. It's probably going to be like Valentine's Day.
Probably. So happy Festivus, everyone.
Happy Valentine's Day when everybody hears this, because it's probably going to be around that time anyway. Because we do record beforehand, and we have some that we still have to post. But I will give a quote. 1 + 1 = 2.
You can't
Mathematics.
Prove that, Chris. You can't prove that, Chris. We've been over this.
Mathematics.
You can't prove that.
All right, stop. All right. That was the Anything Podcast.
I was Arid.
Episode, I don't know. You were Aaron. I was Chris. Have a good night.